First, I'd like to thank the Department of Arts and Philosophy. I'd also like to thank Dr. Charles Fink and also Professor Chris Arca. I'd also like to thank Chris and Michael, my tech guys here in the command box. He's down here to help me just in case this mic doesn't work. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for filming this event. And I'd like to thank every one of you today for attending this event. I very much appreciate it. The title of the lecture is Against Diversity. And this lecture is an exercise in critical thinking. Critical thinking is one of the 10 learning outcomes of Miami-Dade. Students are supposed to learn here at the college. Number 3, solve problems using critical and creative thinking and scientific reasoning. So what is critical thinking? Critical thinking is the disciplined thinking that is clear, rational, open-minded, and informed by the evidence. Rational, open-minded, informed evidence. For that, we must hear and we must listen to both sides of the issue. And think hard. Today, I will argue that other side. And think hard. The claim I will challenge today, the claim I will think critically about today, is that diversity is always good. That's the claim to be challenged. So what is diversity? Let's get a definition. I'm going to give you a definition of diversity in general to begin things. Diversity in a general sense, it's the state or quality of being different or varied. The state or quality of being different or varied. That's diversity in general. Now, let me challenge the notion that that kind of diversity in general is always good. First, diversity includes the bad. But including the bad is not good. So diversity cannot be good. If diversity did not include the bad, it would not be truly diverse. But again, inclusion of the bad is bad. I mean, think about it. What's better? A diversity of grades? A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's? Or straight A's? It's obvious. Straight A's are better. Though A, B, C's, and D's, that's more diverse. What's better? A diversity of truths, falsehoods, and contradictions? Or only believing the truth? It's obvious. Only believing the truth is better. But that's less diverse. A diversity in health and disease. The whole diverse spectrum in your life. The greatest ups of health, the greatest downs of disease. Have that spectrum, diverse spectrum in your life, or lifelong health. Being diverse in health and disease is not better. Diversity in happiness and misery. A few good times, but some really bad times, or a long, happy life. A diversity of virtue and vice. Some good traits, but some really bad traits. Or someone who has only good traits. Less diverse, but better. What about society at large? A diversity of racists and anti-racists in a society. Diverse. Or wouldn't society be better if there were no racists at all? A diversity of educated and uneducated people. Or a society in which everyone is educated. A diversity of slaves and masters? Or a society where everyone is free? A diverse society of evildoers, serial killers, terrorists, mass shooters, mixed in with some good people. and some do-gooders? Or how about a society like Iceland, where they go years on end without any murders at all? A society where you have a diverse range from the absolutely rich to the desperately poor. Or a society where everyone's basic needs are met. A world in which there's both war and peace. Or a world in which finally world peace all over the planet has been achieved. A diversity of good friends and mortal enemies? Or to be the person that everyone likes? There are such people. And what about lovers? A diversity of some okay-looking people and some really hideous-looking people? Or to have only hot people in your pool of lovers? Obviously, diversity is not always good. It's not always better. A variety or collection of bad things, too, is also diverse, but such a variety, such a collection would not be good. A diversity of criminals, cannibals, pedophiles, arsonists, hijackers, poisoners. Nice diverse collection. It's bad. Or how about somebody being stupid, bad, racist, lazy, diseased, miserable, starving, and butt ugly? Such variety. Such diversity. So good. Surely not. The extremes, too, of diversity, the extremes of badness, I should say. The extremes of badness also add to diversity. But extreme badness is not good. Having cases personally or societally of extreme pain, extreme disability, extreme deformity, extreme disease, extreme insanity, extreme oppression, extreme starvation, extreme depravity, extreme evil. Adds diversity. Not good. It's not good to have that kind of diversity. Further, if diversity is good, then even more is better, and the most is best of all. But that's false. Maximum diversity is bad. Diversity is division, disunity, discord, dissension, disagreement. Take that to the extreme. Imagine total diversity in language. No one understands anyone else. A Tower of Babel revisited. Imagine no one agreeing on anything. So diverse are they. No order, total chaos, people do whatever they want, complete and utter diversity of action and belief. Nothing at all held in common. Maximum diversity, maximum hell. And what of maximum diversity in sex partners? All races, all sexes and genders, all ages, from little babies to old geezers, all species, horses, eels, all people, dead or alive, any and all inanimate objects you can get your hands on. There's people who have sex with fences. There's people who have sex with cars, rubbing themselves on the damn things. Utter diversity, utter perversity. All right, so I think I've sufficiently cast some doubt on diversity in general. Let me now turn to diversity in particular, as it is used in most moral, social, and political discussions. What kind of diversity do I mean? I mean diversity in particular. Maybe you could call it demographic diversity. Diversity here, in which it's most talked about, is the inclusion of individuals representing more than one national origin, color, religion, socioeconomic stratum, sexual orientation, etc., etc. Other things are sometimes added. Now, practically speaking,
This type of demographic diversity, as talked about here mostly in the US, involves the following groups. As you will be aware in discussions in our society, everybody knows when you talk about diversity demographically, usually people mean the inclusion of blacks or African Americans, women, Hispanics, Native Americans, LGBT, disabled people, and also currently now, since 9/11, Muslims are included now as the seventh. So something like now 70 to 75% of America is now in a diversity group. That seems pretty diverse. Do we need more? How much more? 100%? In any event, what about diversity in particular, this type of diversity? Is it always good? We've been told it always is. Let me critically think about this with you a moment. Diversity does not make something good or better necessarily, this type of diversity. ISIS, you've heard of ISIS, that Islamic terrorist organization. ISIS had a diverse group of suicide bombers. They had Muslim suicide bombers, of course, female suicide bombers, black suicide bombers. They even had disabled suicide bombers in wheelchairs. So diverse. But that diversity didn't make ISIS good. A diverse collection of evil dictators. That isn't good. Genghis Khan, an Asian. Tamerlane, disabled and Muslim. Fidel Castro, a Hispanic. And Idi Amin, an African. Get them all together, you got a diverse group, but evil. Their diversity doesn't make them better. Just because they're diverse, they're not good. Further, I'm often told diversity in minority group spaces is not supposed to be good. There's not supposed to be diversity in the Girl Scouts. You don't allow men in there, boys in there. You don't have diversity on, the Black Entertainment Network. You don't have diversity in the Congressional Black Caucus. Diversity in the Hispanic Congressional Caucus. Historically black colleges, they're supposed to be black. Black student unions now on college campuses, they're for blacks. Black student dorms are for blacks. There's not supposed to be diversity there. Diversity is not supposed to be good there. What about black neighborhoods or Mexican neighborhoods? Should they allow whites in, white women, white gays, and white lesbians? No, I'm told that's gentrification, it's called. Gentrification, and I'm told gentrification, that type of diversity is bad. What about black Africa? Must we allow all kinds of whites in to be diverse? If so, then why was colonialism bad? You would think it brought much needed diversity to Africa, or to the Americas, or Asia. Wouldn't you have to say Europe did everybody a favor? But people deny that. What are the Amazon Indians? They're actually protected from diversity. There's groups and tribes in the Amazon jungle, they protect their territory. You are not allowed in to preserve their culture, to preserve their native group. Shouldn't they kill black people? Some African Americans. Some Muslims? Some white Cubans. They're Hispanic. I'm told no, of course not. Well, that means diversity isn't always good. Further, another point. The most diverse are not necessarily the best. And the least diverse are not necessarily the worst. So you would think if diversity is good, the most diverse will be best. And if diversity is good, the least diverse will tend to be worse. But that's not true. The most ethnically diverse countries are places like, I looked it up, Zaire, the Congo, Uganda, Papua New Guinea, and South Africa. But those places aren't the best. The people in Guinea, some of them will eat you. You'll be diverse American food. The least diverse countries are not the worst. Japan, Norway, Denmark, Finland, very little diversity. But first world nations, it's pretty good to live there. They do happiness studies by country. The happiest countries are the least diverse in these happiness surveys. Finland, Norway, Denmark, Iceland, the happiest countries on earth. Which country leads the world in technological innovation? Business Insider tells me it's Japan. But Japan isn't diverse. The whole island is practically all Japanese. Corporations can be successful with a little diversity too. Take Silicon Valley, the tech industry. A recent report by Recode found that women made up at most 30% of leadership roles and no more than 27% of technical roles at major tech companies. The percentages of Black and Latino employees in leadership ranged from 4 to 10%. Not very diverse, but they're highly successful. Google, 75% of Google's leaders globally are men. 2% of its employees in the US are Black. 2% are Hispanic. Just 20% of tech employees are women. Apple, another big company, 3% leadership is Black, Hispanic, percent. As far as women, 32% in Apple's workforce. Facebook, another one. In 2016, 17% of the workers are women. And the proportion of Black and Latino workers are 1% and 3% respectively. Twitter, another big one, employed just Black out of a total US workforce of 3,000. That's only 1.7%. Let me turn now to sports teams. The NFL is 74% Black. The NBA is 69% Black. In the entire NBA, only 11 players are Hispanic. There's no women. There's no disabled people in wheelchairs. There's few or no Native Americans, Muslims, but they're the best players in the world. Further, another point, diversity is so diverse, it has a diversity of bad effects. First, diversity is divisive. But what's divisive isn't good. It causes conflict. What causes conflict isn't good. With Muslims, the Shia and the Sunni are at each other's throats. Catalonia wants to leave Spain. The Turks and the Greeks have to be separated from each other on the island of Cyprus, or they'll kill each other. Russia is still fighting Ukraine. Syria is divided along ethnic lines. The Hutus hacked to death the Tutsis in Rwanda in that genocide. They've all been living together in diversity for centuries, and they still hate each other. The Buddhists persecute Muslims in Myanmar. The Muslims persecute Christians in the Middle East. I could go on and on across the globe. In our own country, there's tension and conflict between blacks and whites, blacks and Hispanics, whites and Hispanics, whites and Native Americans, men and women with the Me Too movement, Muslims and infidels. Imagine for just a moment that all human beings were all of one race. Just imagine that. One ethnic group, one religion. Wouldn't the world have much more peace, much less conflict. There'd still be conflict, but wouldn't there be less? Diversity can also be a source of conflict. Diversity causes a lack of trust. Robert Putnam, a famous sociologist, proved in a thorough study that ethnically diverse communities in America suffer a loss of social trust and solidarity. He discovered that the more diverse the community, the less it trusted, not just other ethnic groups, but the less it trusted its own ethnic group. They don't participate together in a community. They hunker down, away from each other. Diversity has a diversity of other bad effects. Terrorism. We have something here in this country called the diversity lottery. It's a lottery of 50,000 immigration prizes. A lottery system by which we randomly select people from underrepresented countries. A man from Uzbekistan, Saifullo Saipov, got in with the diversity lottery. He made the country more diverse. In 2017, he plowed a truck into cyclists and pedestrians on a New York City bike path, killing 8 people. Female genital mutilation. It's rising in the United States because more and more diverse people from the Islamic Middle East and from other parts of Africa have come to our country, in which that's their culture. Crime. The MS-13 gang, crime gang, is in the news all the time. In England, you have Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. Been in the news over and over. Thousands upon thousands of girls raped. Diseases. We had cases of Zika in this country. Government dependency. There was a case talking about Zika, a Brazilian mother, I believe. She had a baby, she was pregnant, knew she had the Zika virus, knew it might affect her child, flew to America to make sure that she had the baby on U.S. soil. It was a Zika baby. The child born on our soil is now a citizen of the U.S., and so we have to take the medical tab. Calls for restrictions on free speech. That's also a side effect of diversity. Anything that now offends diversity groups, there's calls for censorship. Cartoons of Muhammad. The latest poll just came out a couple months ago. U.S. college students value diversity over free speech. If any speech should offend any diversity group, that free speech should not be allowed. Says college students like you. There goes philosophy. Very famous philosopher by the name of Diogenes famously said, "What good is a philosopher who never hurts anyone's feelings?" Philosophy is supposed to question things. The push, the demand for diversity lowers standards. But lowering standards is bad. The push for diversity is so intense these days in our society that standards are being lowered in order to increase it. In the armed forces, the U.S. Marine Corps came out, here's a headline, Marine Corps eases requirement that has inhibited female infantry officers. They had a requirement to become an infantry officer, you had to pass a demanding physical training test. Not anymore, because they wanted to get more female officers. There was only one female officer in the history of the Corps that ever passed that test. Get rid of the test. Lower the standards. The police. I found a story. North Miami Police Department. They dropped a swimming requirement. Look, we got beaches, we got shorelines, we got all those canals all over the place, we got rivers all through this county, we got little lakelets and lakes in this county. Some people may be drowning victims. Some people may need aid. Car goes down into the canal. Somebody is offshore, needs to be saved. Well, the North Miami Police Department dropped that swimming requirement. You don't have to. Apparently, according to the news story, it said not enough Haitians know how to swim for whatever reason. And they wanted to make sure they got more Haitian police officers. Department of Justice. Here's a headline. Criminal background checks, citizenship requirements are barriers to police force diversity. If you want to make the police force more diverse, you got to get rid of criminal background checks. Let people with criminal records join the police. You got to get rid of physical fitness tests. If they're too demanding, they discriminate against women. This was the Department of Justice under Obama. Here's another headline. Minneapolis to reduce police psychological testing after screening out too many minorities. You got to get rid of that test. Don't psychologically evaluate people for mental illness or disorders that might screen out many. Here's a story. Rebecca Wax, this is for a fire department. Fire departments too now. Rebecca Wax, 33, set to graduate from the fire academy without passing the functional skills training test, a grueling obstacle course performed in full gear with limited air supply. Got to drop it for the diversity. Providence, Rhode Island admitted that it's loosened its hiring requirements and intensified its outreach in recent years in an effort to land more women, more minorities. Air traffic controllers. Here's a headline, Trouble in the Skies. Report alleges lowered standards in cheating to increase diversity of air traffic controllers. So you lower standards to get more diversity. That's scary. Teachers. Here's a report to increase teacher diversity, ignore selectivity of teacher education programs. Constantly tests are being thrown out, teacher tests, teacher exams. Tough tests are thrown out, according to the New York Times, if too many minorities fail the test. College admissions. There's affirmative action in the colleges. Med schools, law schools, affirmative action throughout our higher education system. Whites must score 130 points higher than Hispanics. 310 points higher than blacks. That's according to a Princeton study in 2009. So some standards are lowered for some people to increase diversity. Here's a headline, Georgetown Law no longer looking at LSAT results. And that was in an effort to boost diversity. So you see this push for diversity, this demand, is sometimes overstepping its bounds, resulting in the lowering of standards. Let me shift now to another point. I want to suggest some types of diversity we should actually prevent. And if you should prevent something, then you're saying it's not really good. Think about disability. Disability is on the list up there. Shouldn't we do all our scientific and medical efforts to decrease and to try to prevent the cases of disability in our society? But if that's what medicine and science ought to be doing, That type of medicine and science will reduce diversity in society. But shouldn't we still do that? Further, if diversity is good, the more diverse is the better, and the most diverse is the best. But that, again, is not always true. Look, the interracial person is more diverse than the monoracial person. Is the interracial... Are interracial marriages and families better than monoracial families? Are interracial families better than monoracial black families? Most people would say definitely no. Is the bisexual, the bisexual is more diverse than the homosexual. Is the bisexual better? He's more diverse? Interreligious marriages are more diverse than monoreligious marriages. Are they better? Families with disabled people are more diverse than families without any disabled members. Are they better? Being transgendered is more diverse than being cisgendered. Are transgendered people, are they better? What if someone has multiple personalities? And they're all diverse multiple personalities. One of every race. Let's suppose somebody has a diverse multiple personality. One is a black lesbian. One is a radical Islamic man. Is that person better? More diverse. Or suppose someone is a mix of all the diversity groups together. It's possible somebody could be black, female, Hispanic, Native American, a lesbian, disabled, and Muslim all in one. Is that person better? She's more diverse than anybody else. Again, if diversity is good, then inventing even more diversity would be even better. Look, genetic engineering is coming down the pipe. In your lifetime, you will see it. Genetic engineering. Should we use genetic engineering to make even more races? It'll be more diverse. Wouldn't we be even better off if diversity is good? Should we make even more disabled people? Even more weirdly disabled people than we have now? Disabled in even more ways through genetic engineering. Disabilities that never before existed on the planet. Should we try to create even more religions? Some more fanatical than any other religion that's ever existed. That would be more diverse. Would it be better? How about even more sexes, even more genders? People who are truly and functional both as men and as women. True hermaphrodites. Should we create even more genetic deformities? Skin colors, people with many eyes, many fingers, many arms, some half pig, half human people. Some people are calling for the creation of human Zs. A human Z. A cross between a human and a chimpanzee. This is just an editorial printed. We ought to do this. Create hybrids. People black on one side, white on the other. Genetic engineering. Man on one side, woman on the other. More diverse. But not all those things are better. And if so, diversity isn't always good. I want to suggest, too, there are internal contradictions. Internal contradictions in diversity. And what's contradictory can't be good. The problem I see with this collection is there's a contradiction between Islam and those other groups. At least some of those other groups. Islam is not LGBT friendly. The vast majority of Muslims on the planet think all that stuff is wrong. Pew published a survey of Muslims around the world. Muslims across the world, from 67% to 99% across the world, believe that being gay being LGBT is morally wrong. You may remember the terrorist act in Orlando, here in Florida, the Fusion Club. Omar Mateen went in there, killed the clients of that gay nightclub. But across the world disagrees fervently against homosexuality, against LGBT. It's in the Quran. They don't believe in majority, they don't believe in equality between men and women. Muslims, the majority of them across the world, believe a woman must always obey her husband. They don't believe in interfaith marriage. They favor Sharia law in majorities across the world. Christians and Jews must submit to Islam, must submit to Muslims. Anti-Semitism is highest among Muslim groups than any other group on the planet. According to the ADL, anti-Semitism is 74% in the Middle East and North Africa. The ADL is the Anti-Defamation League. It's a Jewish organization. So 3/4 of Muslims in the Muslim world are anti-Semitic. And now, with the large migration into Europe, Muslim countries, anti-Semitism is now at its worst levels in Europe since the days of the Nazis. The Jews of France are leaving in droves. So you got a contradiction within those groups. Further, the overall push for diversity contradicts itself. And what contradicts itself can't be good. I'm going to argue, lastly here, that the push for diversity destroys diversity. Imagine if every place and every country and everything must become diverse, then everything becomes the same. The Amish, you've heard of the Amish? They can't exist. They're not diverse enough. The Japanese can't exist. They're not diverse enough. Chinatown should not exist. It's not diverse enough. Little Havana should not exist. It's not diverse enough. Tibet, Amazonia, the Amazon tribes in the jungles, the Navajo, the Eskimos, they shouldn't exist as they are. They are not diverse. Indian reservations should not exist. There should be no majority black places because blacks are a majority of the world's population. They're not even the majority of the US population. So if everywhere has to be uniformly diverse, there will never be any majority black areas. The Chinese are 18% of the human population. So everywhere and everything should be 18% Chinese. And nothing should be more than 18% Chinese. The demand for diversity, if you demand everything be diverse, that demand will result in a uniform mixture of people. The demand for diversity destroys diversity. For the sake of diversity, everything must be the same. But that's a contradiction. So let me conclude. If diversity is not what we should demand, what should we demand? Well, you already know the answer. Just suppose for a moment you need a major medical operation. Do you demand the most diverse medical team, regardless of how good they are? Or do you demand the best medical team, regardless of how diverse they are? You demand the best. If it's diverse, good. But it's got to be the best, right? Paramount. That's most important. You demand the best. Let us demand the best. Black or white, man or woman, gay or straight, let us demand the best. The best of ourselves, the best of others, the best for today, the best for tomorrow. Let us demand the best. The best in all times, the best in all places, the best in all things. Let us demand the best. Now and forever. The best. Only the best. Always and everywhere. The best. Thank you very much for your attention. All right, we have an open mic up there for any questions, any criticisms, feedback you'd like to say. We welcome any type of comments, objections. It was a philosophy lecture. It's a critical thinking lecture. So you could get up there and make me think. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. We have a mic. And so since we're recording this, we'd like you at the mic so that we can hear you loud and clear.
Yes. Hello. Hi. I have a question.
Yes.
On those
Okay, you got to speak. Get it right up to your mouth.
Okay, like this?
Yeah.
All right. I was just wondering, why aren't Asians in that diversity list?
Why aren't what?
Asians in that diversity list in the
Okay.
US.
I'll tell you why. Sometimes you'll see talk about Asians in the country, but usually not. And the reason is, I believe, Asians do even better than white people. Okay, if you look in terms of income, if you look in terms of educational levels, across the board, they outperform whites. So it's like, I guess from people who are really devoted to diversity and want diversity to be paramount and most important, the focus seems to be on what they would consider to be underrepresented diversity groups. The thing with Asians is they're not underrepresented. I mean, for example, I gave you figures from Silicon Valley, from the tech companies. If you look at the Asian numbers for those companies, I mean, it's like orders of magnitude their percentage in Silicon Valley over their percentage in the population. The Asian percentage of the population is very small, but it's like Silicon Valley, given the companies, like it ranges from 30 to 40%. You follow me?
Yes. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
if there's no diversity,
You got to get right up to the mic.
historically speaking, in the civil rights movement,
Right.
when that was going on, there were segregated buses, segregated restaurants, uniformity. You weren't allowed to be there. Are you saying that that's a good thing? Historically, this country has been run by white men that didn't include women. It didn't include blacks. If affirmative action hadn't taken place and they were forced to lower their standards, as you've said, those groups might never have been included, and we would have gone on the same with white men running America. Also, the Me Too movement. If women hadn't started to speak up, the entertainment industry in particular would be run the exact same way. So I understand what you're saying, and you do make a strong argument, but I think in some cases you have to force that issue of diversity. And I wanted to know how you felt about that, because if we didn't, we would be like we were in the past.
Okay. First, I want you to think a moment, because I'm going to say, in one sense, if you look at what diversity is, when you had a segregated America, in one sense, that is a diverse America. You agree? You have one thing that's very different than the other thing. So technically speaking, you still have a diversity quantum there, or a diversity ratio. Follow me? You have a diversity relationship. So, I mean, on some definitions or ideas of diversity, that was not diverse in the way that you're saying. On another measure of diversity, it is diverse. You got two different things, and diversity is the state of being different or varied, okay? So, but secondly, do I think that was right? No, no. I think, as I said, I think we ought to take as paramount importance what is good, what is excellent, what has merit, what is the best. People should be judged on the basis of their merit, okay? Not on the basis of whether they're white, but not on the basis of whether they're black either. Not on the basis of whether they're a man, but not on the basis of whether they're a woman either. So I would say to you, I object to what was done before the civil rights era, but now in the new era that we have, in our new world order, now the discrimination has been flipped around. Now there's discrimination against those who in the past were the discriminators. Now there is affirmative action. For women, there's affirmative action for Hispanics and blacks and Native Americans and so on. So now, and that's written in laws, okay? That's a standard operating procedure in our institutions. So now we have a reverse type of discrimination. But I disagree with that too. Because again, you are not judging people based on merit, on their degrees of excellence, on their degrees of qualifications, on their individual qualities.
But I think that because they weren't included historically, they weren't given the same opportunities to achieve the same level of excellence that white males are privileged to have, just because they're white males.
Okay.
That was my point. If you're striving for the best, then it has to be equal opportunity across the board for everybody. But I understand what you're saying, that it's a slippery slope. Once affirmative action takes place, then you set yourself up for the reverse situation. So,
We're already down at the slope. We're already down the
Right.
slide.
Right.
But let me say further. I mean, how do you handle these cases? A moment ago, we just heard about why did I not talk about the Asians? And I gave the reason why. Asians outperform whites in this country. Now, let me ask you, were Asians discriminated against in the past in this country?
yes.
Yes. Yes, they were. The Japanese were put in internment camps during World War II. We had something called the Chinese Exclusion Act. We had mob riots against the Chinese in California, with all kinds of discrimination in the past. But notice, you don't need affirmative action for Asians. In fact, what's going on at the colleges, what's going on at corporations, is they try to keep the Asian percentage down. If they did it just on merit, it would be sky high.
Right.
It's a dirty secret in college that Asians have to score well above whites on SAT scores to get in.
Right, I know that.
And they try to, Harvard, the Ivies, they try to keep those Asian numbers down. They don't want it looking like Beijing.
Right.
Okay? Now, if this country is so discriminatory, so racist, how can it be that a group that was discriminated in the past is now outperforming whites? Further, Jewish people outperform Gentiles in this country in terms of money and income, in terms of education levels. Were the Jews discriminated against in our country's past?
Absolutely.
Yes. But then you would say, well, shouldn't they be lagging behind white people? Just like the Asians, shouldn't they be lagging behind white people? But they're not. They're outperforming white people, both Asians and Jews. So, I mean, this is an indication I want to emphasize that currently we've got a system in which minorities, diverse groups can succeed. So what you have to do is look at the qualities possessed by the overperforming groups, the Asians and Jewish people. And then mimic those qualities. Do what they do.
So there are cultural differences, the way
Right.
what they value and the way they're raised. You're saying mimic that system for the minority groups that
Right.
don't perform
They
as well.
They show if you do those types of things, that emphasis on education, that emphasis on deferred gratification in the present for the sake of the future, hard work, industriousness, they show you can be a minority group discriminating against the past and totally outperform the former discriminators, the former oppressors.
Okay, I'm just not sure if people aren't forced to do something, their natural inclination is not to want to do it. So if the world was run by a bunch of men, and in this country, white men, and nothing was forced upon them to make any changes, I don't think that the diversity that you're now criticizing would have occurred at all.
Now, let me ask you, you talked about the civil rights movement. Was that forced on white people across the country? In fact, the majority of whites were sympathetic with it. The majority of white America voted for the representatives voted for the Civil Rights Act. We're in favor of the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Movement had the most sympathy. And the holdouts in the South, they were looked upon as rabid dogs, right?
So you feel the same about affirmative action?
It wasn't actually, so the Civil Rights Movement wasn't so much forced as the majority white population agreed that something was not right.
Okay, I'm just saying, so you think that the affirmative action would have occurred on its own? It would have just naturally happened?
Okay, affirmative action first used to mean, when it was first introduced, and this is again back in the late 60s, it was first introduced, affirmative action meant you would affirmatively go out and try to find minority applicants. You wouldn't jigger the system. You wouldn't do reverse discrimination. You would just make affirmative action and hunting out, searching out minority applicants. Now, that has morphed now to which it is jiggering the system, in which it now is discriminating in a reverse direction. So what do I say? I say we should have had a system based on merit at all times. So before the Civil Rights era, in which we did not, that was wrong. But now we don't have a system based on merit anymore. It should be based on merit. And minorities discriminated against in the past, under that system, can outperform the former discriminators, the Asians and the Jewish people.
Okay, well, I agree that in the beginning of affirmative action, it had to be jiggered a little bit because the minorities weren't afforded the same opportunities education-wise and levels of excellence for achievement that white people were. But I agree now, as the years have gone by, it's become much more even. But I don't want to keep talking because somebody else wants to talk.
Go ahead. Yeah, you might have to move that mic and get your mouth right up to it so we can hear you.
You make the claim that diversity has a diversity of bad effects, one of them being that diversity itself is divisive. Why do you choose to place the blame for divisiveness on diversity itself rather than perhaps the lack of empathy of the people who are furthering that divisiveness, like the people that the very radical Muslims that say that are persecuting those who are Muslim, or the men who are saying that women should stay in the kitchen and shouldn't have the same rights as them? Why are you placing the blame on diversity as a concept rather than the personality traits or the ignorance or lack of empathy of those people?
It's because diversity means difference. And when you differ from somebody, that now becomes a source of conflict. Think about disagreements in political beliefs. People automatically now, when they disagree, when they differ, when they are diverse politically, there's conflict between them. Islam is itself a whole intellectual scheme. It's a whole culture. They have a variety of beliefs that are in stark difference to our belief system, our belief set. And with that difference itself, that now is a source of conflict. Agreement is not a source of conflict. Disagreement, difference is a source of conflict. That's where conflict comes, when there's a difference. When there's no difference, there's no conflict. So at the source, diversity is going to inevitably have some level of conflict, just because conflict only arises when there's difference.
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions? Right. Move that if you gotta. Take your time and put it right up to your mouth.
Okay. It's not so much a question as just kind of attaching to what she just said. Don't you think that conflict in and of itself, diversity causing conflict, also creates a conversation that can create a better resolution for something?
Sometimes it might, but sometimes it does not. So this is why I say diversity isn't always good. I mean, sometimes, some difference can result in, let's say I got two philosophers and they disagree. But they offer arguments, counter-arguments, objections, criticisms, and they refine their positions. Maybe they resolve the dispute between themselves. That's possible. That's possible. But that's not always the case. I mean, in philosophy, it's famous. Philosophers continue to disagree. There's more disagreement in philosophy than perhaps anywhere else. So that might happen, but I tend to think that by and large, it doesn't. And that's why I'm saying that diversity isn't always good. Diversity may sometimes be good. But it seems that the celebrators of diversity want to say that it's always good, or it's mostly good, or it's better than it is worse. And that's where I'm bringing in my challenge.
Okay, thank you.
And notice, when you say you come to a resolution, I got two people disagree, and they have a conversation, and they come to a resolution. They have moved from diversity to now some type of unity. They now agree with each other. So you have a movement away from difference, away from diversity, to unity, to oneness, to sameness. And if you say, well, that's better, that's good, but then you're saying diversity isn't good. It's agreement that's better. You see?
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions, comments? I thank you, the last few who stayed to the bitter end. I thank you very much for your attendance today. Thank you very much. I appreciated your attention. I'll see you.